Ladies and gentlemen, it is slightly after 7 p.m. on February 18. Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me through this? Can you hear me through this one?
That was better.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you can't hear me. We'll call it 7:04 on February 18 of 2020. We are calling the City of Cortland Common Council meeting to order. Ask everybody to please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comments. We ask that comments are directed to council, be kept to 3 minutes in length, and deal with items that council can respond to. First up, Tom Gold.
It's been 9 months, so I have a lot more. I'll keep it under 3 minutes.
Tom, I'm sure you're a member, but the microphone, make sure the switch is flipped up towards. You got it.
Hello, hello.
Well done.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first, I want to congratulate the 3 new businesses that came to Cortland: Planet Fitness, the flower shop, and the furniture store, which took 20 years to redo that building. It seemed like it took almost 20 years. And I see we're Riverside Plaza starting to grow again. And more businesses to come to the area. I don't know if the city and the county can get together in some kind of a group to get more businesses in and help us. We need, and plus sometimes the rents are too high in the city for the businesses. That might be a problem too. And thirdly, two-way Main Street. Is there, if I thought of it, somebody else might have. Would there ever, what they like they did in Ithaca, the Commons? Would there ever a Commons approach for the city of Cortland?
Talking about shutting down a section of street, making it pedestrian only.
Yeah, like in Ithaca, but
There's been some general discussion, but never anything that rose to the level of consideration.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
Next up, Jerry Ruggiero.
I want to talk about the zoning meeting you just had and some of the zoning changes you're making tonight, quickly. First, I find it remarkable that we spend years to develop a whole brand new zoning code, tens of thousands of dollars. It takes years to develop, and we finally get it here. And then the past year, it seems like every meeting we're trying to change something that was wrong, as if we didn't read it before we passed it. And now when I look at some of the changes that are going into effect, quite honestly, it looks like we're going back to the 2003 code. So I wonder what the real difference is between the 2003 code and the new code after these new changes. I'm not sure if we're really approaching this the proper way when we pass our laws. As far as the zoning and the enforcement and stuff, I'm very interested in these discussions, because as everybody knows, pretty much, there has been considerable enforcement of the 3 unrelated law in the past 4 or 5 years, 20, 30 times, quite honestly. And as one of the landlords that has been charged for that, okay, every time it's been dismissed without probable cause, every time. And I've never hired an attorney. I don't need an attorney to have it dismissed. So I think part of the problem is, how are we enforcing these laws? And I can honestly say, and obviously I'm involved in a huge 1983 lawsuit against the city about these matters, so obviously I can't go into some details. But certainly, I listened to Troy Beckwith tonight, and I'm astounded at how he can sit here when he's been a planning commission for years and working as a general contractor or employee of a landlord who puts more than 3 in every single one of his buildings. Now,
Jerry, I'm going to ask you to not insult or make.
I didn't insult anybody.
Don't make any aspirations towards people
I don't know
on
what that
council or in
means.
the room.
Okay, but the fact is, okay, but he is sitting here wondering to the code, what's going on with the enforcement when he's actually putting on extra bedrooms, okay? So, and that's true, and certainly if I'm saying something wrong, someone can sue me for defamation. I won't hire an attorney. But more importantly is the issue that we ultimately are going to come to, no matter what happens, is to the very end, uniformity and selective enforcement of zoning laws. Everybody knows it's never been legal in the city of Cortland to have more than 3 people, ever, unrelated. It's never been right. In 54, it was 2. In 78, it turned to 3. In 69, it was remained 2. So it's never been right to have more than 3, but somehow, some way, some of the landlords, our neighbors in your district that you're talking about, some landlords are allowed to get a certificate of zoning occupancy that says you are allowed more than 3 for some reason. The applications aren't on file, the proof that you deserve a non-conforming right, which could never possibly legally exist, isn't in the file. But some landlords are allowed to have more than 3. So for the past 10 years, I've stood up and I've asked this group. Mr. Michaels knows the truth. He spoke to me in January 2015 about this matter, January 14th, I believe. And Tom saw the evidence. And the question is, how can we as a community enforce any law? You're welcome. Any law until you start enforcing against the people that donated money to you or is related to Rick.
And thank
Everybody
you for
should
your
be
time this
enforcing
evening.
Mr.
Our
Cortland.
third
Thank you very much.
speaker is Tim Bennett.
I think I'll hold on a little taller than Jerry. I have. My name's Tim Bennett. I'm the owner of the Cortland Voice. I also am putting on the Chillibration event. Recently I sat down with Patrolman Jesse Abbott, and we decided as a new thing. In the past it was ran by the Cortland Downtown Partnership. I just want to keep everybody, whether it be the councilman or people watching at home or the crowd. In the past, it was ran by the Cortland Downtown Partnership, and the money was like a fundraiser for them. We came to an agreement with Jesse that 40% of the profits for not only this event, so Chillibration, which will be next weekend, not this one coming up, but Leap Year Day, so February 29th, but also the Taste of Downtown, 40% of profits will be given back to that program. That program goes on to fund, like, you know how they do like Shop with the Cop and things like that. We looked at like what the numbers were from last year when the Downtown Partnership was running it, and if it even made at least like those profits, that same amount, they'd be able to bring possibly an additional 10 kids, that's wishes that would be granted, and that's a couple $100s per kid. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is just saying I hope that more people will keep spreading the word. I'd say either tomorrow or on Thursday, tickets will hit Eventbrite, and it'll be the link will be shared all around to go online, whether it's at cortlandvoice.com. If you see it on, you'll see it on Facebook. It'll be shared with all media outlets. I'll send one to Travis. I'll send one to WX101. It's all the different, Evan himself. Anybody. I'll send it out. So just putting it out there. I hope to see each of you with a spoon. All right. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
That concludes public comments. We've got a couple things in the mayor's report. Tom Casterline is present. So we'd like to recognize longtime employee of the city, Tom Casterline. 25 years he's been employed by the city, and I'd like to thank him for his service. We could have a round of applause.
Get a chance to sign up if it was okay for me to speak for just a couple. Sorry.
Council, one more. Very good. Back to public comments. Steve Yuka.
Yeah, sorry about it. Sorry. Got talking about something interesting back there by Ochar. One of your items on the agenda was talking a bit about parking and changing the code a bit. And I appreciate that you all pulled the law that was going to be passed at the second meeting in December, where even in a single family you couldn't park one car behind another. So I appreciate that, Mr. Van Dotzel. I was thinking though, why should it be limited to single family? If you live in a two-family and you've got 2 cars, husband and wife, and the other apartment has a couple cars, what would be wrong with allowing that? It's within that family unit, or apartment, they can sort of get along, and it would maybe keep from paving more of the green space of a yard. You know, just a thought, you know, what would be the harm in having cars in a unit be able to park one behind the other? You know, you sort of need a reason to tell people, no, you really gotta expand your parking lot and make your curb cuts and expense. You know, if there's not a good reason, then maybe you don't have to go there. You know, we're not allowed to park overnight on the street, so it gets interesting. So, you know, and then many of these driveways have been in existence and used for decades, so there would be some grandfathering probably involved with that, but that's probably something that should be talked about as you discuss, you know, what parking's allowed and what isn't. You know, and this is, I keep having to bring this up, that would be true grandfathering, an actual use back at a time when it was legal, you know, as opposed to basically the fake grandfather date that allows more than $100 million in rents that have gone to landlords that over-occupied their properties at the expense of the other landlords around the town, you know, around College Hill area, and they've done it for decades. I mean, it's just this massive amount of money that went to a smaller number of landlords. You know, as you had talked in the workshop about how can we solve this three unrelated problem, and oh my gosh, you know, even though on the book the laws are clear, there's never been a time when you could have more than three unrelated. It's very clear, and there's lawsuits, and it's going to be a mess, and very expensive for the city, I believe, in the end. But you know, if you're driving up on the hill and you see a single-family house and the parking lot looks like Walmart, you might go, well, you know, let's check that one out. I mean, it's obvious. It's just right there in your face kind of stuff. And you know, you go to the property owner and say, look, you know, okay, single family, so three unrelated, so okay, maybe 3 cars. You've got 12. What's going on? Show that your occupancy is legal, and if you can't, 3 cars. That's it. You can, you know, plant some trees in the other part of it. But that's one very obvious way to see that people are most likely, you know, not following the law in a very profitable way. You know, I had mentioned before, you can make $1 million extra on one house if you put 8 kids instead of 3, and you own it for 25 years. A lot of guys are doing it, but thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Let's get back to Mayor's report. I have 2 things. I'm going to ask that we move the recycling, discussion on recycling up on our agenda to number 4. We've got a couple of guests. I'd like to give them the opportunity to speak. Does that meet with council approval? Sure. Very good. So discussion on recycling up to number 4.
Yeah.
And adding an agenda item at the end, the approval of Sylvia Cadis, I hope I have the pronunciation correct, to the Environmental Advisory Committee for the city. And with council approval, I'd like to add that to the end of the agenda. Very good. And minutes from our last meeting, which was February 4, 2020. Looking for a motion to consider filing the minutes as it is. Jackie, second. Troy. Any discussion regarding the minutes, concerns, issues? Hearing none, all those in favor of filing the minutes as is, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? File them away. And our first agenda item from Andrea Rankin, we have a presentation on the votingest city. Andrea, take it away.
30 years ago, I served 2 on the council, Tom. And if you ever wondered where the blue bags came from, that's me and Marty Mack. So they were so unpopular at that time that somebody who ran against me wore one door-to-door campaigning. He had something underneath too. Anyways, I'm so pleased to introduce my friend Jeff Furman, who will share his brainchild that will hopefully invigorate our city's voting population to turn out in record numbers in November election. There's nothing like a little competition to spark the vote, and it is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote. So we have lots to celebrate here. And Jeff, I'll give you a little introduction.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be here in Cortland. I'll introduce myself a little bit. I live in Ithaca, New York. I've lived there since 1977. I first came there in 1961 to go to Cornell. I left in 1963. I was not a very good student, but I love the community and I love being up in upstate New York, and moved back in 1977. And I've been very involved in our community, started a few things there, Community Dispute Resolution Center, and working a lot with young people around the world of business. I just think I'm most well known for my connection with Ben & Jerry's Homemade Ice Cream Company, where I served on the board for almost 40 years. I was chair for 10 years. I actually helped them get started. They were friends and still are friends. I helped them with their very first business plan, which was copied from a pizza parlor business plan where they took out the word pizza and put in ice cream, and a number of cones became a number of slices. And the idea of this company growing to the size that it has grown to was not in our agenda. It really is still a shock to me that has grown that big. And after 40 years, I left the board to turn it over to the next generation. And as I was leaving the board the last few years that I was at the company started to get very involved in voting rights issues and voting in this country, and what kind of impact a company could make on voting. You know, we learned that the President of the United States only needs 26% of eligible voters to win an election, and it's pretty sad how in the United States it is, we're one of the least amount of percentage of people who can vote in the world of democracies, places that are called democracies. So when I left the company, I started to just think about trying to do something about this. And I started an organization called Rejoice the Vote, which essentially has three components. I'll tell you about two of them very briefly, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the Voting as a City Challenge. But the first one is to say that we really need to understand the past. As I got into it from the company, I began to understand the whole dynamics and what's happened in our several hundred-year history regarding the right to vote. And I'll pass out some of these posters we put together, which honors people who worked on voting rights, whose names we don't know, and worked very hard, and sometimes at great risk to their personal safety. And then we've taken these individuals and given the posters to our school system, and we're having students have been doing artwork and posting it in our school board and posting it in the community and getting the business community involved in trying to change the culture of voting from a chore to a celebration, and to look as to make the day we vote in the United States to be one of the most important days in our calendar year, every year, and to celebrate this day as a citizens' participation day in furthering our country. And so we are working in trying to raise the issue of the past. We're also working in our school systems to create a input and engagement with young people, because a lot of the studies show that the earlier you engage young people in voting and in democracy, the more inclined they are to become active citizens as they grow older. And so we have started a youth voting element, and some of it will be going state level to push, for example, having young people being able, 16 years old, being able to go and be poll sitters and get paid and get involved in this, and also to begin to be considered to vote and get automatic registration. Voting by young people increased double in 2018 as it was in 2014. So comparing years to years, as for students who were engaged and had civic engagements. But what I'm talking about here in Cortland is what we call a joyful opportunity to have a contest. And the mayor of Ithaca has signed on. And we're asking if Cortland wants to challenge the city of Ithaca and other surrounding counties and towns and cities that we can engage in this to say we're going to get out a higher percentage of our eligible voters to the polls this year in 2020. And we'll have awards and we'll have trophies that we intend to create that will name a lot of these individuals whose names we don't know. And like the Stanley Cup, you will hold on to that trophy if you win it, and then you'll pass it on when in another election season. So we're working on this. It's basically, I'll be passing these out. All the cities that we have attracted will announce their participation, and announce it that they're into this challenge. They will report, since this is a presidential year, they will report the numbers that they did in 2016 and use the same methodology. All cities will report their election results by December 1st. They can back out at any time and do a lot of fun activities, which we will share with other cities to try to get out the vote everywhere. But the cities will win if they get that highest percentage, or they're the most improved from where they were in the numbers before. And as I said, they can withdraw at any time, and we want this to be lighthearted. We want it to be fun, but we also want to create the understanding of the importance of democracy in our world and in changing and holding on to it dearly and improving it, because it is such an important part of our culture that we need to work on. And as Andrea mentioned, it's 100 years since the women got the right to vote. One of those posters honors 12 women who worked on suffragette issues, so that it's not only honoring people who worked in the civil rights movement, who worked in Reconstruction, but also worked on getting the right to women to vote. And hopefully through this we'll encourage us in working with cities around the country. So we'll pass that out. You can take a look at the posters, and we'd love your support. We'd love your engagement, and we would like to have a fun time in the challenge. Thank you very much.
Well, can I ask a couple questions now? Absolutely. I just have a couple questions.
Oh, yeah, sure.
First of all, are we talking about percentage of eligible voters that are 18 and citizens, or registered voters?
Registered.
We're not quite sure of which way to do it, where the data is easy to access. So I would answer that question by making sure what kind of data each city has. So we're comparing apples to apples.
Right, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, that's so it's an important. We really have to redefine how that would be once we get some cities engaged and what it seems to work out, so that we can compare it year to year.
Okay. The other thing is Alice Paul on one of those on that poster?
I don't know. I'll pass them out. You could look.
She underwent a hunger strike to help women get the rights to vote.
Yes, and they forced that.
So is she on there?
No.
Oh boy, you get to redo those posters.
So no. Here's the thing. So let me.
If you don't have Alice Paul on there,
What-
you need to redo the poster.
This
You know
no.
her already.
No, it's not to redo this poster. It's to do, no, I know you are, but I'm going to really respond because we have hundreds of names. The poster has 12 names on it. They are not exclusive of the other posters we want to do. And when we get the students, have done some artwork, which is now hanging in our history center in Tompkins County, when we get 100 of drawings, we want to take a road show of this. So the names that people add is exactly the point of this whole thing. There's so many people that have done this work in our history whose names we do not know, and getting names out is an important part of this whole effort. So I appreciate that.
I invite you to do a Google search on Alice Paul. You'll be surprised what you see. The woman is amazing, very courageous.
Yeah, well, that's great. And her name is
Alice Paul.
Alice Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was jailed. Woodrow Wilson had her jailed for protesting outside of the White House in 1917, I think it was, in that year, and it was atrocious what she had to go through. They had to force feed her because they didn't want her dying. So there's my history lesson for the day.
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
So go to the library and get Iron Jawed Angels. That's the story of her
That's her
life.
story. Yeah,
It's
that's-
a fabulous
Yeah.
movie.
The movie's a little dramatic, but it hits the high points on it.
You'll never not vote again after seeing that movie.
Any other questions?
So Bruce,
Yeah.
I called the election office and asked them for Cortland, the city of, and the city had 9,000 something registered voters and 6,000 something, so we had a 70% amount of people voted that were registered.
Okay.
So it would be difficult, I think, to get numbers of all those people that would be eligible, because you don't know whether older people
Yeah, well, I'm just
are
asking the
voting,
question, yeah.
and the age breakdowns are 15 to 19, so you got 18-year-olds pulled out of that. It's hard to get the data, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So if you do registered versus active voters and that percentage, that would be a lot more easy to get the data.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
What other cities are you approaching, or how many cities do you have signed up so far?
We've got about 5 cities signed up, but only Ithaca and Albany in New York. And so we're trying to, this is the first year we're doing this, but we're trying to think maybe if we did something, that was along the Erie Canal and had those cities compete against each other. We're doing this, depending on how many cities we get, we'll break it down into maybe smaller amounts. We've been talking to New York City about the potential, but we wouldn't want to compete and involve with New York City. It's so big, but where the boroughs would compete with each other and have those kinds of small competitions going on. A lot of this will depend on the number of cities that we have engaged. But this is the first time we're kind of doing this in a way of asking a neighbor city to do a challenge, a beginning of a challenge, because that may let us go to Binghamton and may let us go to Elmira and Corning and other cities, and to say, let's have this regional contest and try to create just a lot of fun competition around it. So that's why we're here. I'm here this evening.
I'm in. Let's lace them up. Let's go.
You're throwing down, as they say, huh?
Let's do this.
Well, great. Let me know. We'll pass out.
Are you going to vote on it? Do you need to?
Further discussion, council? You want to put forward a resolution? You can do a resolution to approve the city's participation in the Votingest City Competition. We have a motion to consider.
I'll make it.
Bruce, second Tom, discussion.
I think we're up for the challenge.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of a little competition.
All right. So allow me then, if I might.
Now, done. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Bill's in charge.
Pass them around. All right, it's on. I'm going to tell Devontae that you're in.
I will tweet at him this evening.
Thanks. Hey, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And I also would love to have feedback on this. RejoiceTheVote.org is the name of the thing that we're doing around this celebration. So great, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out and for sharing it.
Yeah.
Just a
Wait a
final
minute.
word. The League of Women Voters and the YWCA are in all the high schools registering kids because the law changed. So we are pre-registering 16 and 17-year-olds and registering 18-year-olds as well. So we're in every school, and that's been really heartening, and we've registered 77 kids already. So we just started.
Fantastic. Jeff, Andrea, thank you. Next up, Jessica Hawley, presentation on the big events.
I'm Jessica Hawley. I'm a student at SUNY Cortland, and I'm president of a club called Actively Involved in the Community, which is just, we do community-based things, service throughout the semesters to try and give back. One of the big events we do, as Mayor Tobin said, is called the Big Event, and that's just an opportunity that was started after all the riots and stuff that happened Cortica a couple of years ago, that now we try to gather students to go out into the community and just do different jobs that are needed, whether it be yard work, gardening, painting. So this is taking place this year on Sunday, April 19th. We normally send students out around 10 o'clock to go out, and they will normally be working until about 1 o'clock, just doing whatever is needed. We do have some restrictions on what they can do, like we can't have students climbing up on ladders or lifting really heavy things just for their own safety. We're not professionals in any way at doing different types of work. So I do have flyers that I'm going to end up passing around, and it has an email on there, so if you have a job that you would like done and you're not sure if we're able to do it, all you have to do is email, and there's a few of us who have access to that, and we'll respond back to you and let you know if that's something we're able to do or not. And if so, like, we'll send you a link that you're able to fill out a little like info sheet, and so that we're able to put you down in our system and make sure we have like students coming back to you. We'll ask how many volunteers you need. We do provide breaks and different types of materials that we can use year to year, but if it's materials that are only going to be used once, such as like paint, a lot of times we ask for you as a community to provide that for yourselves, just because we don't have a big enough budget to be providing that kind of materials every year. So, like I said, I do have flyers that can be passed around. And I've been working with Mayor Tobin, and he's also going to help me put a flyer up on like the town website. So all you have to do is email the link that's below, and then from there we'll reach back out to you and help answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions for Jessica?
This is college students who are going to do this on April 19th?
Yeah, college students. We normally have, last year we had about 600 to 700 college students. We reach out to the campus and ask them to come together, and we have a ceremony on campus to begin with where we have breakfast for them and give them their job sites, and we provide shirts also for the students, and then from there we send them out into the community to provide the different tasks that are asked for from our community.
I think it's a great idea. How are we going to put this on our website? I mean, this is
On the website, and we're asking council to assist in terms of advertising. This has been very well received the last couple of years.
Yeah.
5th annual, 6th annual?
Yeah, somewhere
I'm having a hard time remembering.
It
but-
got mixed up for a little bit, just because our club lost control of it for a year, and someone else took it over. So we're just getting it back now, and planning for that. So we don't know exactly how many years it's been going.
But we've had a great partnership between SUNY and the city working on this, and the college students have done a lot of projects throughout the community. So it has been, and I'm sure it will be, very well received. Jessica, thank you for your time and efforts on this.
Of course, and thank you so much. And our club loves to do, you can email at any point, and we love to do just different events in the community. So if you have something else that you'd like to do that's not for this day, we'd love to hear about it and try and help out in any way. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions, further discussion? Want to try to promote, make sure we get the word out. There's been a couple hundred, there's been at least 3, sometimes more than 400 students who have participated. The average, I believe, has been over 30 job sites, 30 properties throughout the city and beyond. So there's been a lot of work that happens during the big event in years past. Active in the community. And our third agenda item, we have the Jennifer Hamilton, and she has some assistants. They're going to present on youth vaping in our community. Jennifer, welcome.
Hi, good evening. So with me today is Margaret Tone. She is an epidemiologist with Cortland Area Communities That Care, newly hired, assisting Matthew Whitman there. My name is Jennifer Hamilton. I'm with a tobacco-free zone program with the Cortland County Health Department. We are aware of of your chock-filled agenda tonight. So we are going to be talking a little bit about youth vaping. And while it is a very serious topic and very complex, we're going to pull together some of the most important information tonight. And we do have a packet to give to you so that you can read a little bit more into some of the information we're providing to you tonight. And a lot of that will also feature information of what's happening locally with our kids here locally and what we can do. But first I'm going to turn it over to Margaret, because she's the specialist with numbers, and we have some data collected from last fall's Youth Development Survey.
So in 2017, only 1 in 10 7th through 12th graders in Cortland County reported vaping at least one time in the past 30 days. In 2019, that number has risen to 1 in 5 reporting past 30-day use. And usage is also higher in the older grades. So in 11th and 12th graders, usage is at 30% reporting using at least one time in the past 30 days. Another alarming statistic is that 18% of 8th graders in 2019 reported vaping in the past 30 days. Last year, when this group was 7th graders, less than 5% reported vaping in the past 30 days. So in that age group, vaping has tripled in the past year.
So we have some alarming statistics, and it's pretty comparable to what's happening across New York State and the country. And we're looking at 30% of high school students vaping and not really understanding what they're using and not knowing what's in their product. This raises some very significant concerns and risks that come along with long-term harm to the brain. It usually takes up until age 25 for the brain to fully develop. Addiction. Many of these products contain an enormous amount of nicotine. They're highly unregulated, so even though the label says it has so much nicotine in them, you don't know for sure of what you're getting and how much these kids are actually inhaling. In addition to the use of these products, it can lead to memory and concentration loss. The research also suggests that young people who use e-cigarettes are 4 times more likely to go on to smoke combustible cigarettes. So it took us many decades to really fully understand the toxicity related to regular cigarettes. But it also will take some time to better understand, especially the long-term consequences when it comes to these products. And of course, we've been hearing a lot in the media related to a lot of the lung injury related to these products. Many of them related to the black market products with some various oils, different components found in these things. They're just so highly unregulated. They're put out onto the market. There's so much variety in these products that we just don't know enough about them. But what we are learning as the research comes along, it's alarming. But we also know that the marketing drives use. So tobacco companies know this, and many of the tobacco companies own these vaping companies. They spend the vast majority of their funding in advertising and promotions at our neighborhood stores. And they have rigid contracts with many of our local stores. They have substantial payments that ensure that their products are highly visible, and they do act as a channel for the industry marketing to our residents, to our people here. Exposure to retail marketing distorts the youth perceptions of availability, its use, its popularity with these products. The majority of youth visit convenience stores, so it's not just Smoker's Choice. It's your Speedway, it's your pharmacies that normalizes this product. Young people are nearly twice as likely as adults to recall tobacco advertising. So you and I will go in, and this is typically what we'll see. We'll see these large power walls of products. We'll see them on the gas pumps. We'll see them on the exterior. Sometimes we'll see flags flying. But they really catch the eye of young people. And the tobacco companies know this. The vape companies know this. The city of Cortland has at least 20 shops just in the city that sell tobacco, vape, or smoking paraphernalia. So what kind of message are all of these shops? It's pretty highly dense in the size of the city of Cortland. What is that sending? What kind of message is that sending our young people? And especially our residents who struggle quitting. So I don't think that the face of addiction is what the city wants. And I know there's been a lot of work and discussion around downtown revitalization. So our addiction centers, part of that, is that the image that the city wants? I don't think so. My hometown is Cortland, and I don't want it turning into something where it's going to be very detrimental for the next generation. But local governments can address this. There are evidence-based approaches, policies that can work, and other municipalities have adopted policies. I can't advise you on what to do, but I can tell you of what other places have done. I am restricted by lobbying based on my job and where my funding comes from. So, but what I can tell you is that those other municipalities, and I have a list of those in the packet that I'm going to give you, that they have capped the number of retailers, and they've also done things such as regulate location, such as near schools, child care centers, those kinds of things where youth tend to congregate. So those are policies that we can also get you examples of for something to look at. And we also have, we're so lucky in our grant program that we do have legal policy experts that do this thing. This is their thing, and they can call and work with the municipality, with you, with Rick, to talk about the needs and what things would work for the city, how it would fit best. So, this is where we're going to end it. We know you have a lot going on in this agenda, but if, we do invite you to contact us if you want to talk about this a little bit more in depth. But if you have questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
We're actually one step ahead of you in this area. We've already asked our legal department to look into this.
Oh, okay.
So this is probably good timing regarding your presentation tonight.
Okay.
So any literature you have to share regarding what other cities are doing will certainly be beneficial for our group.
Sure. Many of them are doing, whether it might be a zoning thing that you do, where you don't allow certain stores in a zone.
We're looking at all options right now.
Okay. So we have those different options that you can look at, and we have that policy center too, that can say, you know, this might work best for what you're looking for to do.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Council, any questions?
I mean, this stuff has just exploded in a quick amount of time, as Margaret said, so I think really it's urgent to act now to do something about this.
Was the governor successful in getting those flavored vaping liquids, I don't know, outlawed and regulated? I mean, he was working on that. Do you know what happened with that?
Yes.
Was he successful, or did that get overturned?
Yes, so he did put forth an emergency action,
Yeah.
which got challenged by the State Vapor Association. And the judge did say, this is the wrong way to go about doing it. So instead, in the governor's budget proposal, he has put forth, so that it goes through legislation, that flavored tobacco flavored vaping juices and devices would no longer be allowed to be sold in New York stores.
Period, but not sold to anyone, for any, okay, great.
That's correct, yes, yeah. So
Okay.
that's now being debated at the state level through legislation rather than an emergency action, which took place last fall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Council, any further questions, discussion? Thank you to the two of you for coming out. We know that this is becoming more prevalent. We're hearing the discussions at state and federal level, but having the local discussion is important as well.
It's very important. We have very limited resources, both Communities That Care and our program have limited resources to help schools. It's just becoming unmanageable for schools especially, and how to deal with it. Yeah, yeah.
Those things are only, the size of your thumb or something, and it's impossible to hide that. There's really no, they don't, like cigarettes, had a smell, like good scent. This vaping stuff, they take a vape, boom, 20 seconds later, that's gone, so I don't know how the schools are dealing with this.
Very easy to conceal, they pass it around to their friends.
Yeah.
It's troubling. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we've moved up our discussion regarding recycling and an update on recycling concerns. I know we have our Alderbert Adams is present, and Charlie Subrick, the superintendent of the highway department, which oversees the solid waste and all that goes into that is also here. So I figured this is a good opportunity for us to review where we're at, what the expectations are, and also I think there are some questions that have come forward, what is and what is not recyclable, and making sure that we're consistent with spreading the message. Gentlemen, can you come towards the front of the room? And I don't think anybody's thrown anything recyclable or otherwise.
Still want to do the presentation.
Want to start or should we talk first? Probably good for us to.
Let's talk first. Since these gentlemen are here, they can make a good presentation.
Very good. So we've had a pretty good list. And I know that the county has been getting calls, the city has been getting calls, and I think best off is starting with the description as to what's happening. You want me to go, Charlie? Do you want to talk a little bit? So when the county changed what is recyclable and also how glass is being collected, so council made the decision that the first full week of every month is glass only. So whatever that Monday is. So the first day in March that there is a Monday, that would be the first full week. And that week would be glass collection only. Every other week would be commingles, meaning everything except for glass that is acceptable. Lids, tops of jars, no longer to be put into the recycling stream. Looking at plastics, cardboard, paper, and then there was a list of some other things that are not. Styrofoam has never been recyclable. That should be going into the trash, and hopefully still is. So council we made that decision, and January, the start of the year, implementing everything essentially the first week in February with glass collection. So there's been a flyer that's gone out from the county highway department. We posted out on social media trying to get the word out, and this is in addition to the several discussions that we have had over past council meetings. But there's still some people who are not sure. We're being very proactive, I think, on social media, trying to follow different threads and make sure the correct information gets out there. Moving along, though, there's some questions, and I think starting off with a couple of things that there might be some difference in terms of items, and I'll start with shredded paper, in terms of how shredded paper is received at the recycling center versus what we're doing in terms of collecting shredded paper. So shredded paper at the recycling center is collected in bags, correct?
Yes, you can bring your shredded paper to the recycling center in bags.
Paper, plastic, doesn't matter.
That's the only item we'll accept in a plastic bag. Shredded paper. Yeah.
So if somebody has a shredder and it comes down into the little stuff and into a bag, plastic or paper, and it can go right to the recycling center. However, in terms of collection, we're doing,
Paper bags only, we don't get that much shredded paper. Maybe, I've asked the guys, I mean, there isn't that, you get that much there?
Not very much.
No. I mean, I'm not saying some households haven't put it out, but there's no more plastic bags here, so we're leaving it.
And that honestly may be the easier message to get across. It's just no plastic bags for anything. But we've always tolerated plastic bags with the shredded paper because it's just easier for them to tie the plastic bag with a lot of shredded paper in it.
all right.
Fly all over.
So talking about plastic bags, so grocery store bags can go back to grocery stores, correct? I think most people are aware of that, but any other type of plastic bag. So if you order something, it comes in the mail, it's a plastic bag that's delivered in, that's now waste, correct?
Yeah, and it always has been waste. At the recycling center, you bring your recyclables in a plastic bag, you're asked to put it in, there's a special trash can for the plastic bag because it's not recyclable.
Well, I'm not sure everybody has been throwing plastic bags into the trash. I can say myself that there's times, okay, it's plastic, it should be recyclable. So there's times I know that I personally put plastic into the recycling. And then we start getting into other items such as cardboard. Wax cardboard is not recyclable.
Never was.
Okay, what kind of items are wax cardboard? So pizza boxes, but I always thought pizza boxes is because of food contamination.
Wax paper would be like commercial stops or something would have like meat into it or chicken or something came in, that was waxy.
TV dinners.
Yeah.
So most frozen food items, cardboard, but there's a wax coating, so that should be trash.
Always was.
All right. See, this is news to me. I'm learning. Cereal boxes.
Throw them away.
We ask that you at least take the bags out of the inside.
I can't hear you too well, Charlie.
We ask that you at least take the bags out of the inside of the cereal boxes.
And then just put the thing in the, and then it's recyclable. The box is recyclable.
The bag, we definitely don't want that
Okay,
plastic bag.
that's good to know.
Okay, but do you want the boxes?
Boxes are all right, but you always have plastic bag or half a box of cereal.
Right, and that contaminates it, and then you can't get rid of it.
So the boxes should be not just empty, but folded, broken down.
All cardboard should be folded and broken down.
To how small a size?
Just flat.
Just flat.
Just flattened?
Yeah, you don't have to fold
Because
it.
sometimes you get the big packages,
Just flat.
and it's on the porch, and
No, there's cardboard boxes down there from, I don't know where they're from. They must be 5 foot by 8 foot boxes. They're just flattened.
okay, but an item like cereal boxes, so for your current hauler, we do contract, assume you're gonna be with us for a long time, but if there's a change, if the county wants something different, we need to make sure that we're coordinating. So if it's cereal boxes, you are collecting or you're not collecting?
We're collecting them, I mean, if they're got, I mean, we don't get that much of them. What we have the problem is nobody's reading the stickers. I mean, the guys picked over 300 stops today, they left 50. The week before, I think they left, there'll be 250. You know, I mean, so it's changing slow, but now people are trying to hide their glass in the bottom of the recycling bucket. I mean, it's just, and then when you go to the stop and the sticker's still on it from last week, you know they didn't do anything. So you're gonna have those people, it's gonna be a slow process, but they'll get to it.
And that's the main goal for the county, is to make our recyclable stream more attractive to merchants like Mr. Adams and Casella or Waste Management or anywhere that handles the recyclables. Because right now, it's not a Cortland County crisis, it's not a New York State, it's a worldwide crisis. And we're just trying to have a more attractive product so it doesn't cost the taxpayers as much money. And it changes hard. I mean, months ago, I knew there'd be an uproar, but the easiest thing to do probably would have been just to do it all at once and go back to full sort. But the residents and the haulers, they're not equipped to do that right now. But I mean, the commodity market's in the tank.
Understood, but we're trying to, I mean,
And
the
it
goal
isn't
here is
just
to make
the
sure
easiest
everybody is aware,
transition
here's what you
possible.
should be putting in, here's what you should not be putting in, and the items that are recyclable do go. So frozen, boxed items that basically out of the freezer, those boxes are trash. Other boxes, so I'll use the example, the little pudding cups or the Jell-Os that they're attached together with little bits of cardboard. Recyclable, trash.
They are mixed paper,
Yeah.
but they're a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we'll accept them at the recycling center.
And we're gonna get them, I mean, like eight dozen eggs comes in that cardboard.
Okay, which
Styrofoam goes in the garbage, but the
Okay,
ones
so
that
the
come in
styrofoam for
cardboard,
the eggs goes in the trash, and then the cardboard you do
We
take
take
for the
that,
eggs?
yeah.
Okay, what about the plastic ones? Because when I place the organic ones, it's got like 3 folds. Can I tell them to stop
Are they
getting
crunchy?
organic?
If it's crunchy, you throw it away.
If it's crunchy, throw it away.
If it's flexible, throw it in the recycling bin.
Okay, because we're not using the numbers, so I want to make sure that we're, I'll ask for help. What other items are we hearing about? What other items are we seeing that there's
Yogurt
questions
cups,
about?
are those trash?
Trash.
And that's, you know, it does get very confusing to residents.
So yogurt cups, are you talking the individual sips?
The little individual.
And that's,
Now, what about the bigger ones that you get, what is it, a quart?
Yeah, core.
right, and then that's a different material.
Yeah, that's a different
Okay.
material.
That's a flexible, soft material. The big containers of yogurt are.
The 32 ounce.
Are the flexible material.
So
you know.
those can be.
And that's the best way to describe it, is if you grab it and squeeze it, and it's crunchy and brittle, it's garbage. If it's,
Crunchy and brittle.
if it's pliable, you know, flexible, that's recyclable.
But the lids still go in the trash.
That is by far the easiest message.
So
All
the larger-
lids go in the trash.
Yogurt, cottage cheese, those larger containers, those lids, even though they're pliable, they still go in the trash and they get in the way in terms of the machine.
And,
Is that,
and it's more confusing to start trying to tell residents what lids you want. It's hard enough with what containers, much less lids.
So one of the things I've observed or heard from residents is it seems like there's a lot of confusion, and I think some of it comes back to, you know, they're correcting behaviors that maybe these are items that haven't been accepted all along, but they didn't realize it. And there's a lot of details like these yogurt cups that come up, well, it depends on which size and whether it's a lid. So one of the things, when I go on the county website, there's general guidelines, but I think people are coming up with very specific questions. And I'm just wondering, how do we give them guidance, or where are they getting that information of what goes in the bin, or those types of specific things? Is
Well,
it calling the county?
it's not the ideal situation, but right now our phone number's on all the stickers. And our senior engineer is manning the phone most of the day the last couple of weeks. And Mr. Tobin and I have had an email exchange, wanting to discuss the message on the stickers.
so we'll clarify and make sure that the questions that are coming to the county are with regard to what is and what is not recyclable. And we passed around a potential flyer, look for feedback before we put the sticker out, trying to make sure that we're getting everything squared away.
And it sounds like, so then from what I just heard, there is staff at the county to answer the questions of
Yes.
what goes in the bin, and that's the best place for a resident who has a bin that was rejected, can't figure out what's in it that wasn't acceptable, call the county.
Correct, and I mean, there's a lot of phone calls about what is and what isn't acceptable that we're answering. There's a lot of phone calls about the scheduling. You know, just people are confused right now. There's a lot of information for them to process in a short amount of time. You know, we get a lot of complaints. Well, this is the first week I put my glass out, but they didn't pick up my recycling. Because they put both out. You know, it'll get better in time, I believe.
I have a question, a little different vein. So the recycling center is now open Monday through Friday only. Was it 8 to 3:30, 7 to 3:30? I can't hear you, Chuck. Can you speak into the mic for me?
7 to 3:30.
Is there a way that the county would be willing to maybe make, I'll just say Monday or a half day so it's open on Saturday? Because a lot of folks are working those hours.
It's open every Saturday.
It is open every Saturday.
8 to noon, every Saturday.
From till noon still?
Yes, 8 o'clock until noon, every Saturday.
Okay, so it is still open on?
Yes.
Is that on that sign? I won't buy the sign,
Yes.
and I wasn't sure if I saw that on there, and people asked me about that, and I said, I don't know, I'll ask.
Yes, it is.
So,
Small.
small, okay. All right, good enough, perfect.
I've gone one step further tonight. I've brought a bag of goodies here that you gentlemen can help me with. As we go through the bag, you're just gonna say recyclable, non-recyclable. And I've also mapped out on a calendar the next 2 months regarding what days are which. And if it's okay to proceed forward, we can head in that direction and see if we can't resolve some of these issues that people have been asking questions all about tonight. Yes, it is.
I see 3 minutes.
Okay, what I've done is I've taken this large calendar and I've mapped it out as to what we have left going on this month. Red items are what I designated as plastic jugs or containers. And you can see tomorrow is the 19th. And that will be plastic, cardboard only. Homemade. And I did that for the next following week.
And cans.
And cans, yes. Moving on to March. What I did was I identified glass in blue. And as we all notice, the first week of the month is all glass. Now following into the second week and the remainder of the month is all your remaining items, plastic, cardboard, cans. I've even gone one step further and went into April. Now once again, you notice that the first full week is not glass. That's because the first full week of the month is the second week, which are identified as blue items. All the remaining items for the remainder of the month are your recyclables, your plastic, your cardboard, and your cans.
Now, that's the one thing that I was just concerned about is that really gonna confuse the residents? That they automatically think the first of the month starts the glass, the first.
The first full week.
Right, I understand it, but
Yes.
as far as the residents, are they gonna think the first through the 7th of every month, they put their glass out? But there's a lot of months that start in the middle of the
There
week.
is, and we had some full months to start with this year too, 4 weeks, so. So we're gonna move on to our recyclables. Trash or recyclables?
Recycling. Well, it's gonna be in our compost pile for a while.
Okay, it's a plastic jug.
Take the top off.
Yes,
You take the cap off, right?
yes.
Don't crank it.
The top gets thrown away. The jug is recyclable. Styrofoam,
Trash.
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 This is trash. It might be squeezable, but it's not something that can be ground up and utilized again. Trash. These things show up a lot. These are trash. Something else that gets thrown in there from time to time. These little puffy bags. That's trash. Milk jug, recyclable.
Without the top.
You can squeeze it. The top's been removed. The top's been thrown out. Recyclable.
You don't have to take the label off.
What about the lid for the metal can?
Yeah, what about
The what?
lids of metal cans?
Yeah,
And they need to be clean.
somewhat. You don't have to take the labels off.
The paper label
Paper
can be
label
on,
can be on.
but they need to be clean. They can't come in with quarter spaghetti sauce or something.
glass. It can only be thrown out in the recyclable 1 full week out of each month. First full week. Straws. Garbage. Here's the lids we were talking about. These get thrown out. And that's it.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Do some
Thank you,
presentation
Jeff.
for us. One thing that you didn't have in there that I want to make clear that is definitely trash.
Yes.
Is the large coffee cans that you get that are cardboard on the outside. I mean, they're the worst. They're cardboard, tin, and plastic, all commingled into one package. And it's about impossible to.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever bumped into one.
Yeah, some of the coffee comes in the plastic recyclable containers.
Okay,
But
yep.
then also, there's coffee cans that they're cardboard on the outside with a metal bottom and a liner.
Okay.
And they got plastic lid, and they're the worst.
Yep, so just throw them out. Just throw them out. Yep.
Buy the plastic.
So speaking of coffee, the cups, if you get a disposable cup from a local store, then those are all trash as well, correct?
I would hope so.
Bring your
The card,
reusables.
Yes.
bring your reusables. The cardboard sleeve that goes around,
That could be composted. If it shows up at the recycling center, we're not gonna reject anything like that.
I'm hoping that this tonight shed some light and answered a lot of questions that some of you might have had. I believe that the Voice is going to be showing this from time to time, so that those that can pick it up later on if they didn't catch it tonight. So I want to thank all of you for participating.
But on a better note, we are seeing a lot cleaner recycling stream down to the recycling center, a lot less contamination, a lot less glass. But of course, some of the big front loader trucks where the dumpsters outside, people are still contaminating that a little bit with a bag of garbage or glass now and then. But in general, I mean, it is getting a lot better.
I still have heard from residents who are very confused about the recycling acceptable items. And I understand it takes time for people to understand what goes in the bin. Are there plans on the county's part to continue educating for, and any broad brush outline of what that might look like? Or,
As far as the education,
yeah.
there's no set schedule on the education. I think as most of you know, we are searching for a recycling coordinator. Not that, I was gonna say, not to make excuses, but we'll still be putting more flyers out. Any changes, we need to address we're getting a lot of pushback about landfilling some of the recyclables. You know, that's not something that we wanna do. It's a necessity right now. Mr. Adams is working with us as best he can. I believe next week we're gonna bring a couple load here and there. It's not gonna, but it's gonna at least keep it out of the landfill. And we're composting the fiber when we can't find it. And that's keeping it out of the landfill as well. We'll use that compost to reclaim our shale pits up there after it decomposes.
Yeah.
I mean, we are trying to think outside the box until hopefully the commodity market comes back. I don't want to be negative, but if it doesn't come back in the next year or two, I think the country as a whole is going to see a lot of recycling changes.
It's not so much that, like newspaper, it's not so much making any money off because they haven't. But it's just plain getting rid of it, just take it. I mean, we probably got 800 bales of newspaper right now, and they want us to pay $25 a ton to get rid of it, plus the trucking to Philly would be $900. I mean, might as well put it in the landfill. I mean, they just won't take it. I mean, it's not that it's that bad or contamination, they just don't want it.
okay, and it's, so the message that's coming out, it's not just in terms of the city and what we're doing with recycling. I'm working on the assumption that other haulers are holding their patrons to the same standards. Because the blue bag program in the city, I think most people know, but it bears repeating, is optional. It's an opt-in. People do not have to participate in the blue bag program. They can always opt for a private hauler. We have had some people saying, well, I'm just gonna go with a private hauler, and I don't know if they're doing the sorting at the curb. Bert, we're not asking you to do that. I didn't follow your truck, but I've been watching, and I'll commend one of your guys up and over the snowbank, not just getting the container, but up on Wheeler Monday, went up and over to get a couple loose items that were floating around. So you got people who are working their tails off, and for them to try to sort at the curb is not gonna help, because it's too much to put on the hauler. But I'm working on the assumption that if people are hiring private haulers within the city or even outside, that they're being held to the same standard, correct?
Well, that they're being held to the same standard as what shows up at the recycling center. And that is the problem. You know, it'd go a lot better if it's the same message. But some haulers are sending out flyers wanting their residents to do a full sort. And that's really confusing people, because the reason behind that is the week they want them to just sort tin cans and metal, they'll keep it for themselves to make a little extra revenue. But it's clouding up the message that the county's trying to put out there. And then we have other haulers telling residents just to throw the glass in the garbage. You know, so they're conflicting messages. At the county recycling facility, we have one message and we're sticking to it. But we can't control what these individual private haulers are telling the residents. We can only control what we accept there.
Well, that's why I think it's critical that both of you gentlemen are here tonight to make sure that our message is clear, that we are consistent with what the county is expecting. And hopefully, you know, his crew is doing, they're being held to a standard. And hopefully this expectation is that other haulers are being held to the same standard. So for people who are recycling and are interested, you should know what your hauler is doing, whether or not they're living to the standard that is expected. And it is also important that the city does not make a profit, that our blue bag and our recycling collection system is funded by the purchase of the blue bag. So the recycling collection and the trash collection, the tonnage fee and everything else is all in those bags. So we're not making money off of this, we're just trying to provide the most cost-efficient service that we can to the general public. And if other companies are coming in and people want to choose other companies, they can. We just want to make sure that everybody's held to the same standard, because eventually we want to make sure that if Bert's got to have his trucks coming around, that they are getting what they need in terms of it being functional for him, for the city who we contract with to do their job.
We've had some residents say they're gonna put the blue bags and they're gonna have us pick up their garbage directly. And, you know, we tell them that's fine, but don't change the recycling. You're still gonna have to do the same recycling that you did, you know, if you bought the blue bags or had us privately. Well, and that ended that.
I think that's
They thought they were
what
getting away
Brian-
with something, you know?
And that's, your concern was to make sure that if they do get their own
Yeah.
hauler, that they're doing what we're making them do.
But I think
Somebody
that's-
flying under the radar, just throwing it all in the trash and not doing what they should be.
And I think you made a very good point, Mayor, about not making any money off the blue bags, because the county doesn't make any money off the landfill or the recycling center. But the landfill does fund the recycling center. So the more money we can save the taxpayer, we won't have to raise tipping fees. You know, the worst, you know, if we didn't make these changes, instead of $80 a ton, we may have had to raise it to 90 or 100, and that would affect your blue bags as well. Then you'd have to charge more. You know, we are trying to look out for the taxpayers. I know it's very confusing to some residents, but
So what you're saying is that there's 70% of the city residents go to private haulers, there's no loss at all in revenue. So if everybody goes to private haulers, there's not gonna be any loss at all.
It decreases the money coming in, but I would suspect we'd see a decrease in the, well, you see a decrease in the blue bag sales, but you would see a decrease in the tonnage, because there would be less trash going into the, yes. So yes, there would be a decrease in revenue and a decrease in costs.
The contracts, they pay on the tonnage.
What I've heard is happening, that private haulers have now increased some of their fees. So everybody thought that they were getting out of one program and jumping into another program. which was a little bit cheaper, but they're actually finding out now that it's kind of backfiring on them. I do know people that have private haulers, and this is what I hear from them.
I did want to ask 2 points of clarification on collection. One was that I've heard some residents tell me they're not getting stickers on their bins. If a bin is left behind because it wasn't properly sorted, is it getting a decal or a sticker on it?
It stays on it, yes.
Okay. And the other.
I saw two tonight that had stickers on.
Yeah, by and large, what I've seen has the stickers. I think there was just a few. And I'm also trying to understand, somebody was in an apartment building, several bins were set out next to each other. If one bin has improperly sorted material, the other bin has properly sorted material, the ones that are properly sorted, are those getting collected?
I hope so, they should be, yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
That's not the case on that one instance that we're referring to. What happened was my son put his bin out, and he did everything according to where the schedule was. And the fact that the bin next to his, they did just the opposite, so he didn't take any of them. Not knowing whether the house might have been a residence where they had 2 bins out or whatever, but I guess what I'm hearing is that some apartment complexes did not pass the word down to their tenants that there's a new program in place. And I think you can probably relate to this. A lot of your problems are at apartment complexes.
Yes.
Some of them, yeah.
But they'll get the word soon.
Oh, yeah, You probably run out of orange stickers. I'm sure they'll catch on at some point.
The biggest reason that them people didn't get notified because the flyers would have went out to the person that got the water sewer bill, not the tenant. I believe that's the way it worked.
You know, I heard the same thing.
Right.
We mail to the people that get the water sewer bills with the intention that whomever is in charge of water and sewer is probably in charge of other things with the property.
And you said yes, probably.
At least they should be communicating.
Yes.
These are the issues that we're facing. And we do have another mailer, our traditional Public Works mailer that goes out in March coming up. And we are completely revamping the section on trash and recycling to better reflect the changes that we are expecting.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Well, are you getting fewer calls this week than last week?
Well, it's Tuesday, so it's hard to say.
Like you were saying, this is 20 years plus of ingrained behavior that we're trying to change. I don't think we're doing that badly since it's only February, and most people are really making a good faith effort. You know, like the yogurt. Like the yogurt cups. I've probably been putting those little yogurt cups in the recycling because I thought you could recycle them. Now I learned tonight that you can. So, I mean, even those of us that are a little more involved with this haven't figured it all out yet. So I think it's just going to keep taking time and education. Tom, I think you did a great job there with your demonstration. You know, that this is yes, this is no. So it gives people an idea.
Hey, I could come back next month. You want me to?
Well, you might have to because it seems like there's more questions about it. The cereal box, yes. Plastic inside it, no. You know, so it's difficult.
Like I said earlier, we are seeing improvements already. It's only the second month.
And I think the people in this community want to do the right thing. I think they want to recycle. I mean, people realize it's better for the environment. It's going to save the lifespan of our landfill, and that's going to be expensive when we have to, you know, if we ever get to a point where we have to open another landfill. So I think people want to do the right thing. It's just trying to figure out what is the right thing. That's my take on this. For the most part, there's always, you know, that person, but most of the people are trying to do the right thing.
Further questions? Further discussion? Yeah, I think going forward, we appreciate the clarifications and your drivers, your employees, as long as they continue to put the stickers on and they're marking, and that's going to help the education. The calls are going to keep coming in, but taking it one day at a time.
We'll get there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Go quick,
Number 5? Agenda item number 5. I'm going to hazard a guess that the meeting may start moving a little bit more quickly with some of our next items, maybe after 5. Discussion on amendments to zoning section 300 and setting date for a public hearing. So this is discussion.
Is that me? Good.
The zoning officer, Bob Ray, is present. Bob, how are you?
I'm your zoning officer. So, education is really important with the zoning regulations too, Tom. The new zoning book has a lot of tables, so you can just look at a table and see if something's allowed or not right across the field. If it's all the residential or business, you don't have to flip through pages. So, this is cleaning up some of those changes. If you have any questions, you may have, in your package, you may have had 2 collections of documents, the previous ones that you did or did not get, and then the more recent one, which is just front and back, 4 pages. That's what I want to talk about tonight. The first pages are the changes, and the next 3 are the tables that are being affected. I'd like to eliminate these categories because they can be a little confusing. If you, for example, on the first table, if you look under residential, it'll say accessory uses are allowed in certain areas under residential. It's not listed under or institutional or commercial. So someone might think I can have a shed, which is an accessory structure at my house, but we can't have one at the church. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it was intended. So I think we should get rid of those categories. And I went straight through with those, and I continued on the last page. This is the parking regulations. Not as confusing, but I wanted to eliminate them there also so it's consistent throughout the document. They're really not necessary.
So everything you've redlined is going to disappear?
No. At the first line, the blue are my comments. It says my comments are in blue, the top left.
Yes. Yep.
Right, then black is the existing text and red is the proposed text.
Okay.
So for instance, you'll see the first red is ground-mounted units prohibited. That would appear on the bottom of the residential table under solar panels. Now under 163, it says they are prohibited, but it doesn't say that on the table, so I want to put it on the table so it's clear to people. If you move down about halfway down the page, it talks about a ground-mounted solar. That's one of the changes I'd like to make, that we allow it in industrial districts with a special use permit, rather than just say we don't allow ground-mounted units at all. They would have to be reviewed by the planning commission before they would be permitted. The rest of these are just clarifications till we get down to the bottom half of that page. I propose we eliminate 300-83, talks about off-street parking. It sets a maximum to 110% of the minimum. In other words, if you have a single-family house and you're required to have 2 parking spaces, this says you can't have any more than 2. I don't think that's what we want to do. So I'd like you to approve that change. Steve Muka mentioned the change on page 59. I want to put that exception for single-family dwellings back in with parking. And what the code department refers to as stacking. So stacking means you would have to move one vehicle to get another vehicle out. So this would be exempt for single-family houses. And then finally, for the criteria that I use for issuing certificates of zoning compliance, I want to add number 17. This was presented to you before, I think, but the text I saw online did not show the actual change, item number 17, so I want to make sure that is included.
Where is that about?
The bottom of the page, first page. In other words, right now there are 16 other things I can consider when I'm issuing that certificate.
Can you explain one thing? I think it means?
Sure.
On third page at the very bottom, it says proposed change below, and then small print says mixed building use, and it's at a -2. What, I don't know what that.
That's a note, and it refers to, and then you see
Okay, I see
two
what you're
below
saying.
that.
Oh, got it, okay.
They, when they rewrote the code, they eliminated mixed-use buildings. A mixed use is residential plus some type of commercial use,
Okay.
usually retail. And when they rewrote it, they said that upper-level residential units are allowed, but that was as close as they came to a mixed use. Now, that applies to the central district, which is downtown, so you don't want apartments facing out on Main Street on the first floor. You'd have a retail business, and then residential uses would be on the second, third, fourth floor. But in other districts, they should probably be allowed. They have
So
in
is
the
that
past.
footnote for the commercial for CB and NB both? Is that why it's sort of straddling them?
It applies to the second one, which is neighborhood business, and it's permitted in the next three, professional office, general business 1, and general business 2.
And it's on the second floor for commercial for CB and NB.
Right. Second floor, and it's blank, so it's not allowed in the central business district.
Okay, now you got me confused. So you
Okay,
can't-
right now it's not allowed anywhere.
Pardon me?
Right now it's not allowed anywhere.
A mixed-use building, you're not gonna allow apartments on the second floor? No, we have apartments on the second, that's why I'm confused.
Right, okay. Right now, our code doesn't have mixed-use buildings. It's not mentioned, period, so they're
Okay.
not allowed.
Okay,
And I think that was a mistake.
okay.
So I want to say, possibly not in the downtown district. We probably don't want to allow them on the first floor, the residential on the first floor.
Right, that's, are allowed
Yeah.
residents on the upper floors only.
Right.
But if I look under, isn't CD, what does that stand for? Isn't that central business?
Central business.
And then
So
that's blank underneath that.
it's blank, so it's not allowed. It's prohibited.
There's no residents on the second floor in central
I
business?
think we have
I'm sorry.
is there one space too many?
Yeah, probably, yeah, there is one space too
Should
many.
be central business.
The first one, central business is blank, which means mixed-use building isn't allowed. But if you look on the table, upper floor residential is allowed, further up on your chart. Well, I'm sorry. This is just, the table that this goes to isn't here, isn't represented. I want to add this to the bottom. So upper floor residential is allowed downtown.
Okay.
But I want to add mixed-use buildings, allow them with a special use permit in the neighborhood business, and allow them everywhere else. Mixed use would be, the apartment might be in the rear. It could be a store or an office with an apartment in the rear.
Okay, it's still not telling me what I really want to
Okay.
vote on this, and I need to make this clear, because it doesn't indicate that. On that mixed-use building, under the central business, it's blank, which would suggest to me that you're not gonna allow
Okay.
residents on the upper floor, but I know that you are, because I know that we do. So why is that blank?
Because the rest of the table isn't there. There would be another line that says upper floor residences, and there would be a P that says permitted. I don't have the whole code with me, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right.
And I skipped dinner because I was learning about recycling, so
Okay, as long as, okay, that's fine.
if it's crunchy, throw it away. Sorry, Lisa.
As long as you just read it, now make it.
I should have put that entire table probably above it. So you can see it.
Second page, 300-22, crossing out residential, institutional, commercial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just to avoid confusion, as I said before, when you look at these uses, you don't want to associate a use specifically with with any of those categories. The categories were put in by the table maker just to make it, just to separate it a little bit and make it easier to locate things. But it's a little confusing, or it can be.
So that explains on the next page. Council, further discussion? All right, want the opportunity to review further and then place a public hearing? Or look at a public hearing, 2 public hearings, recommend more than one, because usually people miss the first one, they see it and then say, this is something I want to make sure I weigh in on.
I would think 2 should be sufficient.
Both meetings in March. I believe it was what, the 3rd and the 17th? Kind of you, Charlie. All right, so we'll look to schedule public hearings March 3rd and March 17th, and then have the opportunity to consider whether or not vote thereafter. Could be the 17th or it could be in April. All right, any further questions from Bob? Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
New agenda item number 6, resolution to lift the hiring freeze to hire in the police department. Motion to consider Bill Carpenter, second. Bruce Titler, discussion. We got Chief. Need some details.
We're anticipating an officer transferring to the Onondaga County Sheriff's Department by the end of this month or early next month. I'd like to get started, once I know when he's leaving, I'd like to get started on a background investigation to replace that officer in order to get them into the next police academy that starts in Broome County on March 30th.
So the request is to begin the process, and then there would be a request coming back for the official hire if and when paperwork is filed. We can do that. Questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Number 7, resolution to close Court Street from Main Street to Church Street on May 31st from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the 2nd annual Stone Soup Community Gathering on behalf of the Stone Soup Committee. And we've got a couple people joining us this evening.
We do.
Officer Abbott, would you please introduce yourself? Let's see who else you have.
I promised to keep this brief, as I was politely reminded that today is National Drink Wine Day, so I won't take too much of your time. I'm here with Tammy Timmerman, my sister Kelly Locke, my nieces Maya, Olivia, and Ayla, and they've helped out on the committee for the Community Outreach Picnic Stone Soup event. Maya, can I actually help you hand these out to everybody up on the council? these brochures just talk about a little more about the community policing position. On the back of it, you'll see a friendly face being the mayor. Last year, June 2nd, we hosted our first community outreach picnic stone soup event. And we shut down Court Street, and the whole idea was to build relationships and strengthen existing relationships between the community and the police department, but also make awareness to the community that the police department supports inclusiveness. And so leading up to the event last year, it rained, if you remember, it rained all day up until about an hour before the event. And it still was a very successful event. We had approximately 500 people show up. This year, we're hoping to have more people. We're hoping to have more eateries involved, and I'll have Tammy mention that in a little bit. We also are inviting our friends to the north at the Onondaga Nation to come down and educate us on their culture and to provide some ceremonial dances and everything. And so it's going to be a wonderful event. It's a free event, but we are asking that the city allows us to shut down the entire street of Court Street from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. About 4 to 5 for setup, 5 to 8 will be the event, and then 8 to 9 will be cleanup. And we also are asking that the city approves the sound permit, the noise permit, and waive the fee associated with that. I'll let Tammy speak a little bit on the food and eateries.
Thank you.
So first of all, I'd like to thank the council for your support last year for our first event. We were all, as a committee, very pleasantly surprised by the turnout we had. I don't think any of us, with raining all day, expected to be slammed at 5 o'clock when we started handing out the mugs, and I do believe our mugs were gone in less than 4 minutes. So, you know, we've addressed that. We did have 11 restaurants participate last year. As part of the Bar and Restaurant Association of Cortland County, our association pays for every restaurant's health inspection permit fee. That's a little perk for them to participate. We did have 11 restaurants last year, and this year our goal is to double that with 20 or 22. But overall, I think it was a very successful event last year. So we thank you for your support.
I just want to say too, our motto is kind of come as strangers and leave as friends.
Yep.
I met made some great friendships and we still keep in touch. So
Yeah, it's a great motto, you know, come as strangers, leave as friends, and really I can't tell you enough. If you haven't seen the video on YouTube also that we made for the event, you can search that up under Cortland Stone Soup. The individual that made that the video for us is also going to be present this year and making another video. If we do get approval tonight, then we are going to go right ahead with advertising starting tomorrow and seeking out sponsorships for the event. I also want to say thank you to Tim Bennett for his support of the community policing position. Again, on a side note, the Celebration, the other events, we're so glad that those are continuing in our community, and to support the community policing position is huge. We don't have a budget to host these events, so it's all based on sponsorships and donors. And for a small fee, I heard that Tom Michaels will be willing to take care of your recyclables.
We'll discuss the fees later.
Yeah. That's all I have from the Stone Soup Committee, but I would hope that the city will consider waiving the fees for the permits.
Council, any questions? It's a phenomenal event. Looking forward to it again this year. The agenda item number 7, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 8, approving the amplified sound permit for the same day, 4 to 9 p.m. in conjunction with the event, and allowing bands to perform for the attendees. Motion to consider. Tom Michaels, second. Troy Beckwith, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 9, resolution waiving all permit fees associated with the street closure request and amplified sound permit. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second Captain McCarthy. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you all for coming out. And to the
Thank
three
you.
younger ones,
Yes.
government is always this exciting.
Yeah, I think they're professionals in recyclables and community service now and zoning, so.
Do they want to take any of them home?
Yeah.
Tom, you gotta take the trash with you. Had the good fortune of attending last year. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good people, and everybody, I believe, really enjoyed themselves. Book reading in front of the library, there was music, outstanding community event. Number 10, consideration of resolution to initiate the process with the New York State local retirement system, and we are looking to correct the retirement system status for a firefighter from the 25-year 384 plan to the appropriate 20-year 384D plan. And this is going to require a commitment by the city of potential difference in contribution from the incorrect plan to the corrected plan to be determined by state retirement. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Troy Beckwith, discussion.
So basically, he went in the wrong retirement system?
Any questions for Chief Friedman?
If I may, yes, went in the wrong retirement system and needed to be corrected like within a year's time, which would have been simple. It didn't happen. So research says we need to start here with your group to say, we'll entertain looking into this. Then that goes to legislation we're gonna have to have from the senator's office, Assemblywoman's office. Starts a bill goes through, then the retirement system will at that point look to see if the change requires any fiscal obligation. Then that will come back here for me to talk about again, and eventually the governor needs to sign this as a law. And this is not atypical, it does happen throughout the state, so that's the only way we can fix it.
So who applied? He applied in the wrong section?
Yeah, he applied and, as Max says, checked the wrong box, but we're not sure exactly where it was, but we've recognized it, and we know that if we don't address this now, in 20 years, it'll be a problem. So this just basically gets us started, so we can get going with it and see what happens.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Big difference in 5 years, you know? To stay in one system, not the other.
Further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Don't go too far, just in case we might have questions, but consideration resolution to approve the mayor, and I'm going to add, to sign an agreement for the city to participate in the 5-year countywide hazard mitigation plan. Motion to consider. Troy Beckwith, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion. Usually fire stuff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, Chief.
I just want to add one thing, the mayor spoke of Captain Casterline's 25 years of employment with the city. I should note that he also celebrates his 40 years of service to the city, much like Chief Glover and a number of our career firefighters. They started out as volunteers. Tom's family is, he's 3rd generation, his son's here, that's 4th generation, so he started out, and this is his 40th year of service to the city. So I just want to touch on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Outstanding. Agenda item number 10, consideration of a resolution to appoint Noah Beck to the Environmental Advisory Board for a 3-year term. Motion to consider. Jackie Chapman, second. Cap McCarthy, discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And number 13, resolution to appoint Bruce Teitler to the Parker School Task Force. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Cap McCarthy, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. I think we should probably abstain, just to be on the safe side. 4, 5, so 5-0-1. It's a tie like in hockey. Only more exciting. Next one, discussion on adding a yield sign where Young Street meets Counts. Alderman McCarthy.
All right, so I believe everyone received 2 maps in their email, it's also in the packet. So the Public Works and Public Safety Commission is currently did not have enough seats filled for a quorum, so they are currently recruiting additional positions if anybody's interested. So that's why this is coming to council tonight as opposed to being recommended from that organization. This location was brought to my attention by an individual, by several who have said that there have been a number of near misses at this location. So it's where two streets meet up. There is no traffic sign, no signal device whatsoever there. And so what we're looking for is to see if we could get a yield sign there. Just to make sure that people understand that when you're approaching the street, that, you know, when you're not on the through street, you need to yield to traffic, so.
Rick, do we have to do anything to the law on that?
No, it's presently a T section. So the law exists already that there's a yield required if there's an accident or anything. So a sign just without your permission.
Further discussion? Okay. We did not have agenda item officially looking for a resolution, but I'll ask, what is the will of council? Resolution to approve putting a yield sign at Young and Council. A motion to consider. Kat, do we have a second? Bruce? Oh, Bill? Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 15, update on Parker School. Kat, is this you?
I see Mayor Tobin.
I got my name next to it. So I don't want to step on your toes.
Shucks, thanks.
So at Parker School, the city school district approved at their last meeting, the city school board voted to approve the sale of Parker School and moving forward with the potential to eventually, not eventually, but the potential for the sale to go to the city with the long-term plan of the facility becoming a home for Head Start, early Head Start run by CAPCO, and daycare run by the YWCA. With that, there is a 45-day period where time for the public and getting information out, 45-day period before there will be a public referenda on the subject. And what that means is that all city school district voters, regardless if you're in the city or not, all city school district voters have the opportunity to weigh in. This is something that the Parker School Task Force has been working on for quite some time. There have been some questions in terms of funding. There's, and it still has not been announced, but there's been some potential funding sources through our assembly person, Barbara Lifton. It's been reported, so I'm comfortable saying that the Speaker of the Assembly, Carl Hasty, when he came through, actually did stop toward and verbally pledged a commitment to help out in terms of the purchase and the rehab as well. Rehab may not be the word, retrofitting in terms of changing what needs to be done to make sure it's accommodating younger students. They're a lot littler. There were some requests from council in terms of environmental, what's the word?
Impact statement.
Concerns.
The audit.
Yes. Phase 1 environmental assessment, and we are in a good place because we had a grant that was written and received, thank you Matt Cook, that is going to go towards looking at Phase 1 remediate, analyzing properties. So the Phase 1 will be able to be done on numerous properties. Our focus will become on the east and the south end because that's what we're working on in conjunction with our BOA plan. But we can do a Phase 1 on the Parker School, which mitigates the potential cost to the taxpayers. The grant will cover that cost. We're in discussions with Empire State Development, which there was a $500,000 award to the city in terms of what the criteria will be, because it does require local match. And there is also a timeline where typically ESD dollars are last dollars in. But we are in discussions about establishing benchmarks in terms of progress. And in particular, the big question is this first year, being able to make the adjustments for the facility to be occupied and having some benchmarks that we can utilize for a portion of the funding because the ESD funds are meant to be 20% of the total cost. So what has happened is, when we applied for the grant, we put in what the total cost, not just for the build out, but any and all capital projects moving forward. So that was a big number, looking at like $4 million. And then the discussion led to what does it take to occupy and deal with the most immediate concerns, and the number comes down to about 1.2 million. So theoretically, that 500,000, about 300,000 should disappear, but New York State is working with us, and we may be able to phase it and save approximately 200,000, which would be 20% for this year, and then in the future, as more projects come forward, the other 300,000 could be phased in as well. So we're getting good news on a number of levels in terms of the level of support at the state level from our assembly person, from the state itself, and there appears to be a lot of support locally. And there's some other questions that need to come up, because we know that this will be a potential benefit to the community as a whole, to the neighborhoods, but we also know in terms of employers, in terms of people who are employed and who have a need for daycare, that this can be a really good benefit to our entire community. So we're going to want to make sure that we're getting everybody informed about what is happening and what the plan is. Next steps, Rick Van Donsel, the city attorney, I am asking him to be the lead person, because we are in a lot of paperwork with this. And as we go forward, we're going to rely upon his legal expertise. So Rick's going to be the lead from the city, dealing with moving the paperwork forward and making sure that we're doing things that we need to put the project in the best place to stay on what is a very aggressive timeline for potential for occupancy this summer. Open the floor to questions. I believe there's a task force meeting coming up. We'll get word out about that. I'm not sure if the date has been finalized.
I believe it has been finalized.
It has been finalized?
Yeah, it's a Thursday.
So you're gonna have to go to another meeting.
Thursday, I can't. I already have a meeting Thursday. So what time is it? Yeah.
Catch up on the minutes after.
Yeah, I have to.
But the project is in a good place in terms of a lot of different components, and I really do want to thank Parker School Task Force, which is made up of volunteers, 3 from our own council, but then also the legislators, school board members, and people from the community, and continuing to work on what is a difficult subject to make a potential project viable. So the next agenda item, we moved recycling up. Update on the DRI. We've had a meeting with the architect, Tim Faulkner, and he's from Fisher & Associates, and he brought in a couple of personnel. We met with some of the downtown business owners, and we're having discussions about how Main Street will look. We're not talking necessarily about the pipes underground, because a lot of people are excited about that portion of the discussion. What about the surface? It becoming two-way. Questions like some of the streets, should they be one-way coming in or exiting from Main Street, nose-in parking or back-in parking, which is generating a lot of discussion among some of our business and property owners. The width of the street versus the width of the sidewalk versus how much space. So right now, if you can envision a complete rebuild, you can move the curbs. So how far in or out should the curbs be? And we're going to have some discussion about not just traffic flow for vehicles, cars, but also what's best for pedestrians, and how are we making it safer for cyclists as well. And we know that, especially this time of year, not as many people out on bicycles, but we are promoting a walkable and bikeable community, and the more that we take little steps that make this more attractive in terms of being walkable and bikeable, we're putting ourselves in a better position in terms of being sustainable locally and in the big picture with what we are doing to become a healthy community, not just for ourselves, but for the planet. So there will be some public meetings that will take place. We're going to share ideas. No final decisions are set in stone until we have feedback from the community. But we are focusing on working with our partners downtown. And we want to make sure that we're putting forward a product that works for everybody as well as we can. Questions about the DRI? Our last agenda item, I had asked for one more appointment, and I believe it's pronounced Sylvia Cadis, and she is a city resident. Resolution to appoint Sylvia to the Environmental Advisory Committee. We have a motion to consider. Cat McCarthy, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion. And we got her information a little bit later. I apologize for the late day. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. So our Environmental Advisory Committee is moving forward on a couple of projects and discussion about recycling, discussion about composting, and they've got some other ideas as well. Again, looking to be green, looking to be sustainable, and keeping our community on the cutting edge of what we need to do to be productive. Is there any further business to come before the council this evening? Hearing none, we can entertain a motion to adjourn from Cat McCarthy. We have a second. Bill Carpenter. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, we are